he's right there, so he's fine.
Yep.
Let me make sure my mic is far. My mic is far. Mohammed's back. This is the Mohammed week. Yo, how's it
Yes.
going? Okay.
You hear me properly, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine. I see you. Just gotta fix that. Okay, so what is today, man? Oh my God. I gotta go to Berlin. I go to Berlin tomorrow.
Oh, that's cool.
I can't believe the week has gone by so fast here.
I want to do a Berlin trip at some point.
It's just a plane ride away, son.
Long plane ride.
Yeah, you need 2 flights. You can't get there directly. All right. Hopefully everybody can hear us. We're in good shape here. Let me switch this over to let me see. Focus was fine. Actually, this sometimes looks blurry, but when I was on that call earlier today, it was crystal clear.
It was clear, yeah.
So, I don't know. All right. So I left myself notes this time because I just can't remember anything anymore. So let's read our notes again. We spent the last class adding context and trace ID support to TCP. Okay, yep. I remember that. We also tested some of that. We started adding TCP server to the CAP. I remember that. We were able to start and stop the service. Mm-hmm. Look into passing context into the logger function. We may have one. Look into passing context. Oh, into the log. Okay, I remember what that was. So, okay. Well, let's go take a look at that again. This was for the TCP. So, I think what I was trying to say to myself was the logger. This logger right here. Where is that? Under there. Okay. I think what I was trying to say is that if we can pass a context to that logger, then remember the logger function we wrote here. This code is never going to work, I don't think, because, I don't know, this code would work. There was something where I was worried about there's no context in the logger. So, oh wait, this is the wrong logger function. This would be this logger function right here. Here.
Yeah, so this will work here in main, but in some other places that we use that internal logger, we don't have the context. So the idea was let's have that context, and then everywhere we use that, even I think inside the TCP package, then we could have it.
Yeah, my goal was this.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. That way the context is sort of part of this thing. Let's play this out because I don't know how this is going to go. I still have to.
And then probably we don't need the trace ID at line 158 anymore manually.
Well, we may not. Oh no, right, we won't, because if this works the way we want it to, we're going to get it for free, right? The goal is we'd get it for free. But that's just because our logger has this sort of support, right? It's because our logger has this support. All right, let's play this out. And then I think you're right. We won't have to add this. We'll get it for free in our case. But let's play this out. So let's change this to take a context. We won't know until we make this change and the compiler forces us to do something, right? Now that might also mean that our internal logger will need a context too. Okay, let's play this out a little bit here. So on the server side, now every time we're logging, this is a new server. This is the logger that, okay, this is that the logger we asked the user to give us, and this is the logger we're dealing with internally. Now, why am I? Let me go back to this real quick so my brain can come back. What? Oh, the internal logger was using integers instead of. Oh, internally we have numbers for that, but when we expose this back to the caller, we wanted strings. I think that's sort of what we did there. And this did the map lookups for us, right? Okay. Now I know. Whoa. Now I know why we did that, which is a bit of a bummer because then it could have just been all the same, right? But that's fine. So that's the idea there. Now this is where it gets fun, but we do have a context here, do we? We didn't add one here. Okay, hold on. We were able to get rid of this idea of a context. Oh, I have one right here though, don't I? We pass it in. So that feels right. We have a context. So that feels right. We come here. Now, in this particular case, we don't have a context because we're a Go routine, right? And in the server side, we did a trace ID. So for this to work, we would have to create a context for this server instance. And all that code that I ripped out because we had a trace ID here. I'm going to leave this for a second. I want to go to the client because I think it's the client where it got super interesting for context, right? Because even with the client, we have a context for the client, right? So this is kind of where the whole thing sort of showed up in my brain because there's a context here, and it would be nice, at least I thought it would be nice, to give those calls.
105.
What is it?
105.
It's weird that the red dot is down here.
Yeah.
And it's happening there. You see, that's sort of interesting to me because now when it comes to the client connection and we log it, we'll have a context specific to that client, which will have the trace ID in it, right? So that's kind of cool. On the manager side, these are events related to, let's see. This has to have a context again. And then where is this used? So like the client manager doesn't really have a context. Oh, we pass a context in, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
So we get away with it here, which is interesting. We get away with it here, which is interesting. But we don't have a context sort of here on start new. Now, start new is called from dial. The thing is that it's funny the dial doesn't have a, it's funny there isn't a dial that takes a context. Isn't that interesting? That's interesting to me.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
I mean, one way to fix this problem here is to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This can come in here. This comes in here. And now we've got a, should take a context. And now we're doing that. So that solves that problem, right? This API taking a context. Now it's kind of maybe fraud because we're never going to respect any sort of timeout on the dial, but deal with that another day.
Should we also pass it to the new client?
No, the new client has to have its own unique context. I don't think.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, it's an interesting question. Should that be the parent context for a new client? I don't think so, because that's a context for dialing, not for anything else. I think that will cause pain. If somebody puts a timeout there, now your clients will time out, right? Inadvertently. But I think there's two separate things there. And again, if we're really going to do this, we need to sort of respect cancellation. And I find it interesting that there may be context support that they added after, because this is part of 1.0 sort of API, just like HTTP didn't have context. And there may be something there. We just don't know about it. But here's the bigger problem. The server, where we did trace IDs. So what this tells me is we've got to go back to, I think, this pattern. Where I do it after I did it before log. So see here, I made it the first thing, right? So I think we got to go back to this sort of concept here. Let me see.
Wondering why can't we pass the context to listen function as well,
All right,
and then manage the
let's do one thing at a time, and then we'll look at that.
yeah. Okay.
We might be able to. I'm just looking at the order of things here. Okay. So that's trace ID. That's context background. There's a context. Here's your context. That's your trace ID. Okay. Why are you doing this? Stop trying to help me.
It does that suggestion a lot.
Yeah, I know. It is. It's something that's got to. I got to find a way to fix that. So look, if I do this, that's fine. Context is now in the server, and now we have a context, right? That is specific for this server that can be used for application use. And one last one here. Okay, we're all yellow. Let's do this, and then we'll go back to your listen thing.
Yeah, sure.
Now this is all red because now this takes a context.
Yep.
But okay, we can validate if this is working now. Oh wait, that's just that. What is complaining here? It's the same thing.
Address.
Oh, this
It
needs a
takes-
context
yeah.
now. Yeah. I don't really like this, to be honest with you. But we'll play it out in a second. I'm more focused on this. Now, if this hack code would work, well, we could test it in our... No, I want to test it here. We now know that TCP has a get trace ID from the context, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't even need to do that. Oh, this is a fumped, right? This is a log. So for us to really know if this works, I can just do that for now, right? This would let me know that I can get the trace ID out of the context. That would let me know that this code here is going to work. And I'll get trace ID for free. In other words, with my logger. So let's just see if this hack program works. And we see trace IDs for everything. All right.
Trace IDs, but not for
not for
Oh,
the
that's
client
client
manager,
manager,
but we can look at that.
Yeah.
Well, I have trace ID. So this was a socket connection that we worked with. That's an accept.
Why is there
Yeah, why is it the
3?
same? Oh, because that's the server. So that's the server telling me it accepted. It bound with this trace. This is actually one of the connections.
Client
And then the
JD.
server accepted another connection, right? That we bound with this trace ID. Nice. Then we've got this trace ID, and this one's a read, but this is server side too. Okay. Oh no, here, bind.
This is the previous one, right? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I know this is the server. Then the server said we bound this trace ID. And then yeah, so this is a client connection, right? And then it disconnected. So that's good. And then the other one is, what is this one? F. I feel like this is wrong. Something's wrong here. Whatever we just did sort of broke. Gotta look at this again. This doesn't feel right. Server bound this, it bound that. This one feels right. This is the other one. That's that other client connection. But that should have followed all the way through. So somehow we got this F thing showing up somewhere. Let's do the following. We can sort of do this too, right? When I log event, that's what we care about, event right now. Yeah. Let's just see if we get the same trace ID twice, right? I'm going to do something like this. Let's see what happens when we do that. So this is the one from the context. The first one's from the context. The second one is from what we're passing in. Let's look again. We definitely did something wrong. These should always be the same. And they are.
They are.
They are the same. So we may have had a bug anyway, regardless of that. Okay. Now my guess is this is the server this is the server trace ID. Right? We're seeing it accept. On the client side, we sent hello, and then we had a read. This was a client. I feel like there's something wrong here. You know, let me take a look at this read for a second. Let's find where that read is, because I'm confused on if this is our handler, right? Our handler on the client said bind the connection, send hello, waiting on read, and then this is us waiting on the read right here. Then we had a second client connect, so we did the bind. Then we have a my logging is really bad, isn't it? I don't understand from this logging what's sort of going on here anymore.
So we see client G started 3 times with 3 different contexts, right? All the way to the right.
Yeah, it's bad.
It should only
But
be.
we should see 2. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe when I moved some logging around yesterday, it caused some pain too. I don't know.
And the client.
Okay, this is in the client code where we say client G started.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go into this sort of read loop, right? Until the client disconnects. All right. So when we do a new client, we call bind. How do we get to read? This is going to be this is on the server side though. Oh, or maybe we're using the same thing on both sides. That's the problem, right?
Yes, yeah. We
That's
use it 2 times in the client manager and 1 for the server.
Yeah. So I think that's what's getting confusing is because we're using this on both sides, right? So like
Yeah.
on the server side, what happens? This is why I think we're confused. We're going to have to fix this. On the server side, when we accept a connection,
Okay.
we say start new client.
Yeah.
On the client side, is that in the manager? On this side,
On the
when
client.
we say dial,
Start.
right? We do, remember what was over here? Start new client. Start new
Yeah.
client does the following. New client, add start.
Mm-hmm.
New client, add start. So,
Mm.
so what's happening in our little hack program is we're seeing sort of both sides of this. We're seeing we're seeing something on the server side, and then we're seeing something on the client side, which is why we see 4, 2 on the client side, 2 on the server side, right?
Okay.
So what's happening then is the following. I think what we're going to have to do is add, yeah. So it would be nice if this said client or server, right? I don't know what to call this variable here, but I need to know which sort of system we're dealing with here for a second.
Okay.
All right. I need to know what system we're dealing with here. So let me do the following. Okay. I need to know which system. So anytime we're logging on the server side, I could add a field just, well, I have name. Oh, I have name here.
You could use name.
I have name here, don't I? What if we did that? And now the name will mean something, won't it?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What is the name
I don't know.
representing now?
Now I think it represents our ability to, let's go back here. I think it's going to represent our ability to figure out what's going on in the logs, is what I think it's going to do.
Yeah. That's what it's going to do.
Yeah, I don't know why that's doing that right now, but
Name a string.
name string comes after context.
Here, yeah, it's missing. Line 70.
Name.
Oh.
The type.
Thank you, bro. Okay, so then essentially here we do server name. server name. It's weird that those dots, maybe it's because of the TV monitor or something. Can't calculate position. I missed one somewhere there. Okay, cool. Now, that was giving the server a name, right? So we could give the client manager a name as well, right? Just like to be consistent. So context name logger. What if we did the same sort of thing? So give me a name. I'm double checking that we stored the name we did. Okay. What if I say, give me a name, right? Now I have a name for this.
You need the string.
Yeah, I did the same mistake. At least I know why I made the mistake now. And then this will be a CM name. CM name. Okay. CM name. Fine. And CM name. Okay. The client is a little tougher because if we play this out, when we say new client, we don't really have a name. So we have a trace ID, but we need sort of a name. Maybe the IP address can be the name.
Shouldn't we pass the name from server or client manager to here? The same name as.
Do we want to do that and then specify that it's coming from? Oh, maybe we do that. I love that idea. Let's do that. Let's do that. But here, this would be more like what? Okay, let's just do that. Let's do that. I like that idea. Let's see how that helps us with the logs. What am I missing here? Here. You're good there. And then on a new client, we just do CM name. And on server, we do server name, right? Okay. So now, now we have a name, right? Which we can put right here.
The first.
And a new client manager. Okay, fine. It needs a name. But when we did the new server, oh, we already gave it a name, didn't we? So we just call it server. Let's just call it server, right? Okay. Let's see what the logs look like now with that. Okay. So now we know this came from the server.
Okay, so
we have the right trace IDs.
Event. Okay.
Okay. Then our client handler did a bind, right? Because the server accepted it. We sent hello. Then on the server side, we did a bind because we accepted that client connection. Then the client manager said, okay, started a G. On the server side, now we accepted another connection. We did a bind, server accept. This time the server started a G. So now we've got G's on both sides, able to sort of talk to each other.
Got it. Okay. So client manager has a G and the server has a G.
See, so
Okay.
now when I do this, I know that this is on the server side. This is the server G, waiting for the message that we sent. It read it. It sent back. Oh, the message received was hello. Then it sent back, got it, right? Now my guess is that this was the go routine on the opposite side of that. But we must not be logging something that we see the other interaction, which is fine. In other words, like now that we have these trace IDs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's do the following. But this is nice, client manager server. Like
Yeah.
that was a huge change to have in the logs.
Yeah. Now we know where the event is coming from.
But now if I come back in here, you see I did server bind trace ID. I did trace ID there. I did trace ID there. Did I not add? I didn't. This is why we're sort of lost. We had trace ID on there, but
Not on bind.
we didn't do it here. So we're not seeing it, right?
And the waiting on read doesn't have it.
Yeah, none of this
None of
logging
it.
has it. So when we're looking at the logs, we're like completely sort of lost, right? And in there. That's why we didn't see it there because I didn't log it there. See now if we run this hack again, now I
Now
got
everybody
trace
has it.
IDs that we can, that we can follow. So the server accepted a G, but on the client manager side, right, we started a G. And now we're seeing that on the client side. Okay, that solves our confusion in logging, whether it's server or client, and we get to name that thing. So that's good. We're going to need this, man.
Yeah.
The other thing that was good here is we got the trace ID out of there, right? So that's good. Now, that means that we added two more things. Here. Oh, we really just need the one. The name and TCP event. I can now do name, but we should get the trace ID for free based on the other function, right? At least
Yeah.
that's the plan. I still don't know what to do with this context. I'll do that for now. But if I start the cap up now, make run cap, TCP event, we have a, look, I mean, I've got a ID here, and it's now waiting. Now, we called that cap, but that's a bad name, isn't it? So, TCP name. So here's, okay. So on the TCP, this was going to be the server name.
Oh, okay. And it
Right.
equals cap.
And this will be TCP server.
Yep.
At some point, we're going to have a client name. This is a client manager, right? We're going to have that at some point. So now if we do this, we run it again. Now we've got the name TCP server here, right? Because we're using the same logger. The other way to solve that would be to have separate logging functions that sort of hard-coded it. which we could have done too. So I could have a logger for one and a logger for the other.
Okay.
That would have also sort of solved that problem. But I mean, we can use this. I think that's fine. We've got that. On line 176. Right. So here, that's a TCP event, right? TCP. So this is where I got confused because I just saw TCP, but it's not an event that's coming out of the system. So that's fine. So this will let us use the single logger if we want for both. That's fine. And we get that information. Again, we could have solved it by having 2 logger functions and hard-coded. This is everything coming out of server. Now that I'm looking at it, but I think it's nice to have carried that around anyway because we needed to see what was going on. Okay. So we're happy with these more logging changes. Now, let's go back to a couple of things here. You said, okay, there was one thing I didn't like, which was on the client manager side. I told it to ask for a context on the dial,
Okay. Yeah.
which, because I had a sort of log statement that I wanted to make there, and I thought we should use the context of the caller, which is probably important because if that context has a trace ID, we want to know that that's the caller made that. This isn't an event. This is sort of happening on a call.
Okay.
So that's the correct thing to do, is to pass the context through.
Because dial
Because
is
this
calling.
call is on somebody else's context. It's not on our own context
Got it.
at any level, even though we're not using it to do any sort of timeout. So this is good to me. Then Muhammad said that we had this code here, right? Which got the listener. Here's the starting of the listener. Again, none of these calls take a context, do they? It's just because this context didn't exist prior to that. So the only thing that bothers me at this point is like the shutdown, but let's take a look at that code again. The shutdown should use the context that's there and should use that context. So I think that's right. I think what we're doing here is we should be using this context, whatever that is. And I don't know what that is right now or what sort of timeouts we should be using. But I think that makes sense. So all that is good now. Got the context flowing into the logger. If your logger has special functions that can look for trace IDs, then, right, you can implement something like I did in my logger, which was this, which works out really well. We're also passing the trace ID directly in those cases where you don't want to spend cycles pulling it out of the context, right? Here's the trace ID. Both just sort of work. So in our hack program, I mean, we did this. I hate having 2 ways to do things. If I'm being like completely honest with you, I feel like we should get rid of this.
Get rid of that trace. Just keep the context.
Yeah, it's bothering the heck out of me. It really is. This is what I think we should be doing.
Yeah.
And then what we can do is get rid of this. We don't need it.
It's still there.
Yeah, we gotta get rid of that. It's bothering me. Either we pull it from there or we don't. So now we can just do this. And yeah, we don't need, technically I could put this right in here because I don't need it. I don't need the variable, right?
Yeah, you only need it once.
Okay. Then
Don't have.
everywhere we're doing that, we can get rid of that. Let's see, on the manager side, do the same thing. Fine. Now, I had a trace ID in the client manager. I'm going to get rid of that as well. Now that's interesting. I have to look at that again. But see, with the client manager, we need the context of the caller, not our own context. So I don't think that was, from my perspective, maybe a mistake. And then here on the client side, oh, we have everything already. But I don't need the trace ID again, right? I don't need trace ID. We need the context. Oh, I need to keep it out here because we need it again. It's just easier. So this is interesting now on the bind. I always like passing the context separate from the client. But now I'm wondering, yeah. So what do you think? I always like APIs that take context first, but we're hiding the context in the client. And then the problem is going to be if somebody's updating the context like this, it's sort of fraud. That's a copy of the client context. So what I'm saying here is, even though I want to do that, I think there's fraud there because you should be like the request, like HTTP, because they had to hide the context in the request. You sort of had to build an API around it. And I just feel like what we're doing is sort of committing fraud if we don't. Okay, it would help if I hit the right buttons. Yeah. I think we're committing fraud if we put it out there the way that I did. So you go away. You're going away. If you need the context, you gotta take it out of the client. I think that's going to cause confusion for people. So, yeah. Oh, here, sorry. Yeah. So if I come back to the make now, or yeah, the hack program, sorry. This just takes a client. And then where was our other code there? Right? So on the hack side, and then this is client dot. Why do we not have a oh, we got to add the context call back now to get it. So let's just add that. Yeah. It's funny how we go back and forth as we learn more on what we really need to be doing, right?
Yeah.
So now what we could also do, since we know there's a trace ID in here, right?
Okay.
We don't have a get trace ID. We have the set trace ID. Where is the get? Oh, it is a get trace ID. Oh, we already have the function, don't we? Yeah, we already have it in TCP.
Oh, okay.
Already have it. So I was thinking maybe you make it off of, maybe you, oh, here's an interesting API design now, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is based on, given a context, get the trace ID,
Okay.
which is important because it's the only way it's going to work up here. But when you look at this hack program, right, we have a client as well. So this would work. We can have this. But we could also, from an API perspective, do trace ID for that client and return a UUID. Then it's a matter of us. We can use our get trace ID from the client context, right?
Mm.
You see, and then when you're writing this code now, we basically just do client.trace ID.
And
You don't have to go through that ceremony. It's there for like the generic sort of logger functions, right? And we kind of already had that. So we keep that API design. We just now leverage it in terms of the context. Now, before I think I added the string because my brain was just like, it'd be a little less expensive, right? To have to go through this every single time. But logging is expensive anyway, right? So, yeah. Okay. So now in our hack program, I gotta get rid of that. So now in our hack program, right, we can get the trace ID either from the context, like we're doing in logging.
Okay.
And then when we're writing our handler functions, and we have a client, we can get the trace ID from there as well. You also have the ability to get context from there. So now what that means here is I don't have this sort of twice. We weren't using it anyway. Our logger gets the trace ID auto-magically. And it's saying TCP app. Oh, new server handlers, which we broke something down here now. Let's see. Well, it takes a logger, returns a logger. So what is this?
Value pointer.
Cannot use.
The bind method.
Oh, I got to get rid of this. Sorry.
Oh, those.
Yeah. And any logging I did here would be with the client context, right? Okay.
Yeah.
See how it's nice to have that because now when we're logging, we'll pass that context around. But if I just need the trace ID, like in the hack program, I can get it too. But in our case, in our cap, we'll only ever need the context. But not everybody has a logger like I do.
Okay.
So they may need, like in this case, we're not using my logger. So we sort of need it.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then if I do make run cap, this is good, right? This is going to be now the trace ID for everything related to
Name,
TCP, server
Okay.
when we
Yeah.
start seeing it. And then we'll have one for well, the client manager. Yeah, but the client manager is really more on client connect. Like from a client manager perspective, we don't really have anything here because we basically call shutdown or dial, right? And we got to use the context of the caller for that. And then everything else that gets established there will be under whatever the name is when we construct the new client manager, and which it's gonna be good. All right, but we'll never have a unique trace ID for the client manager because it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't have its own Go routines. It doesn't. It's just facilitating connections and stuff. All right, let's commit this code here. All right, git commit -am.
Context or
Yeah, better context support. Let's do that. Okay, so we just spent another hour on context logging.
but it helps you later.
Oh no, dude,
It
it would
helps
be
you
long.
later.
We couldn't even read our hack program logs
No.
before, right? Like, if you write your hack program and you're connecting, and this is going to happen in our logs
Yeah.
because we have both server and client manager, and you're reading these logs and you're like, "What's going on?" You're done.
Yeah, it's already.
You know see how complicated this is. Like we were all why is there four? Oh yeah, there's 4 Gs, right? And each one of these Gs is unique now, right? And that's on the client side. Event client manager. We started this G.
So
That's
you
its
can track
trace ID.
that. Yeah.
Boom. Okay. Reading that right. Because you're gonna need it when there's a bug. Because you're gonna say, I sent something, and I'm gonna be like, okay, and then
Now we have to try and track it down.
Now we got to track it down, and we got to track it down with 2 trace IDs essentially. The one for the client connection and the one
server
for the Go routine that's sort of feeding it back. Though on my side at that point, I'll have a G for the server side, and you'd have a G on the client side.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, but still, it's just insanity right there, isn't it? Insanity. Okay. So we try again. So I think we did this now, right? We did this. Okay. So we now have our TCP server up and running. Okay. We now need see, I could do the following too. We now need the TCP client manager. Let's see what it wants to do. Sometimes I'm just curious what it's going to do.
I do that all the time.
So that did that right. I know at the end of the day, we're going to have a TCP.new client manager. We're going to give it a name from our TCP settings. And then it needs one of these. Now here I called it TCP. I'm going to have to call it server config. Now I'm wondering if we just follow that other convention that we had originally, right?
Same thing there, sir.
TCP serve. And then this can be client. And then this could be CFG client config, right? And this is what we'll pass here. And what else does this need? Just a client config. The client config takes handlers and a logger. I don't know what to do with that just yet. The logger is our TCP client logger. That's good. This is going to return a client manager, right? For an error. I think we have the same. Oh my God, we got to fix that message.
Oh, NATS connect. TCP. TCP
And that happens. Okay. That has a shutdown. And that's all we do there because this isn't listening. This is an API for us to be able to shut everything down sort of cleanly, right? We do need handlers though. We do need handlers. So we're going to go back to our TCP app. These were our server handlers. So I'm wondering if we want to name this for now server and a new file called client. Right. I just did it this way because I just want to see what happens. We know we need all the same things. This would be a new client handlers. Whatever. So this would be client manager stuff, right? Which means here, going back here. Okay. Here, then I can say TCP app dot new client handlers given in the logger. Cool. So now we've got our handlers for both the server, the client, and the server. Okay. Something's going to need the manager in order to be able to, and what's going to need the manager is when we do those double clicks.
Okay.
Right? When we do the double clicks. Also, we're going to need to shut down the client manager first. So the order is right, server, then client manager, and we shut down in the same order. Okay. Okay. So I think we have startup and shutdown. Let's just double check that we can do a make run cap. I see it's waiting. We didn't put any logging in. Well, there's nothing that starts really.
No.
But there is a shutdown call.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to hit Control C and make sure it shuts down.
Client manager, I saw it.
Client manager stop.
Client manager completed.
Yeah, so that's good. We might, on the shutdown, however, add some logging just so we know we started it. Because it might be hanging and you don't know why. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, man, I made so many mistakes. We could do something like this. Starting TCP server shutdown. And then on this, which I'll change. Just so we see it in the logs, because if this ends up hanging, we're going to be completely lost. See, starting client and starting the server, and then we see the event. You may never
Okay.
see this log because it never gets to that. And you're like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Well, I can see now we
hung
had
up
started that. So, yeah. All right. So we've got that. Now, there's two separate things going on. We need to be able to, on that double click, use the client manager to establish a socket connection. Correct? Oh shit, we put the client manager in the wrong place. The client manager doesn't belong in the cap. The client manager belongs in the client.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you
We just did a bunch of work to separate the logs on one service. But reality is it's not the cap that's. Oh no, wait a second. Let's go back to our architecture. It is the cap that's making this connection. It has to be cap to cap. Let's go back to architecture for a second.
Oh yeah.
It has to be cap to cap.
okay, cap to cap.
It has to be cap to
Okay.
cap. The thing is, when the UI does a double click, we're going to need a route. We're going to need, when it does a double click, we're going to need to tell it to establish this connection. Right?
Yeah. So we would need a route for that to call, or.
Well, we already have a socket, so we need a command,
Okay.
essentially. And then the idea is that if this connection exists, everything else flows through it. Remember the work we did. Remember the work we did. Chat app. That's the socket connection there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, connect.
But under the business, we added some comments. Where did we add?
We have a here.
I don't know why I called that bus. But here, right? We want the logic to match the order of precedence in the order we think about sending a message. Right. So remember this comment that we had? If we have a peer-to-peer connection, we should send the message over the peer.
Yeah, over the peer. If not, then
We don't have a socket connection for the user. Ignore the message.
would go WebSocket, peer, and then bus.
I know, but didn't we had some code that did that already too. What is this?
To do.
Oh, this was bus. Read bus message. UI handshake. UI listen. Okay, so we have these situations. Let's go back to this code for a second.
Yeah.
On new business, we created the stream. We pull anything that's there.
Yeah.
So that's all we did there. Now on this, we're gonna have to pass it the client manager here.
On the new business.
On the new business. We're gonna have to pass a client manager here. Okay. Now we come back here for a second. Where is this being used? On chat bus. Oh, here. This is the function that's used by NATS. Okay. This is the function that's used by NATS anytime a message is received. Okay. So what I might do here, say NATS. Okay, so NATS read message. So when something comes in on NATS, we read it in. If the user is found, send the message directly to the user.
Through web.
So that's what this logic was doing, remember?
Okay. Yeah.
And then
If we have peer-to-peer, it would send there, and then if not,
if we have a peer-to-peer connection, this is where we wanted to put that logic.
yeah.
We don't have a WebSocket connection, ignore the message. So we throw it away because we don't have it.
So you're throwing it to the bus.
No, we're just throwing it. We're dropping it,
Okay.
right? If we don't have a WebSocket, a message is coming off of NATS.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have a WebSocket connection for this, ignore the message.
Yeah,
we can't deliver it,
It has nowhere to go.
right? Ignore the message because, you know, we can't deliver the message, right? We don't have a WebSocket connection for this user, then just drop the message because we can't deliver it. I hate ending this sentence with it, but can't deliver it. Right, just drop it on the floor, right? Because we can't deliver it. So this is where we're going to check, do we have a client connect? Do we have a peer-to-peer connection? Because then if we do, we're going to send it
Through there.
through here.
Got
Okay, that's on the NAT side. Now, on the UI side, this was UI listen.
Mm-hmm.
This is when we're getting a socket. This is when we have the socket connection from our client to the CAP.
Okay.
Okay. If the user is found, send the message directly to the user. Okay.
Yep.
We don't have a WebSocket connect, right? Now we're saying, so this is Kevin talking to its CAP saying, I want to send this message to Bill.
Mm-hmm.
So we first look to see, is Bill connected to the same CAP?
Yeah.
If it is, bop. Okay, do we have a peer-to-peer connection for Bill? Great, send it. Or, in this case, we don't drop it on the floor. Okay. We don't have a WebSocket user, then send the message over NATS. Right? To find a CAP that can deliver the message. I've been trying to be NATS agnostic, but it's time to stop because we're committing to NATS for this part of the system.
Yeah.
So you see what's happening. Say it again.
We renamed. I remember you renamed a bit from NATS to bus, and now again, it's
Now
like
we go back to
because I never wanted to commit to NATS as the fabric, but at this point, I think it's time to sort of commit, right?
Yeah.
And so even this function, which is in NATS, right? We should rename it
to NAT send message.
and even some logs in this file.
Yeah. And you see like bus message. Right? Bus message.
NATS.
Now, yeah, we can call it NATS message, but I'm wondering if we can use the same All right, let's just call it NATS message for now. We might be changing that back because we haven't figured out how to what we're going to send over our peer-to-peer just yet.
Okay.
Right? So yeah. So that's our send NATS, and that's our NATS read, right? Okay. And we just call that our NATS message. But this NATS message is really the message that we sending to NATS, right? Oh, but we also get the same message back. Okay. We get the same message back.
Got it.
So the message that we're sending, we're also receiving it. And marshal it on this side. Okay. And on this side, incoming message, we had this idea of incoming, outgoing, right? But we've started to use this language of UI so we can remember who we're talking to, right?
Yeah.
And the problem now is we have two different things about what comes in and what sort of goes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we've got this idea of a UI. We have a NATS message. We use it for both, in and out, right?
Mhm.
Just be clear there for a second. What's interesting is in the NATS in and out message, we use the UI incoming message. Because, right, that's from the UI and we want to deliver that anyway, is as if it was. So I like that. I think that variable can stay in, right? But here's the UI incoming message. This is reading the raw. This is reading the raw socket, right? Connection, WebSocket stuff. And UI outgoing message, UI send message, right? So all that feels pretty good, doesn't it? All that feels pretty good to me. So the idea here is we've read a message from NATS, which is what's going to happen, right? Well, it may happen. We've read a message from NATS. Let's think about this now again. We've read a message from NATS.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
If I've read a message from NATS, that means I know I don't have a peer-to-peer connection. Do we agree?
Yeah, you haven't.
Yeah, because you said the priority is with the peer-to-peer.
So I don't think we're ever going to send a message back over a peer-to-peer. Because let me think about this. The messages come in. We check to see if we have that user connected, right?
And if you do, it's gonna go straight to them. There's no.
That's what this logic is.
Yeah, there's no peer-to-peer step.
Then, if we don't, we just drop it on the floor. There's no peer-to-peer at this point.
No.
Either we have it and we can deliver it, or we can't. There's nothing else to do here.
Yeah.
The message has been received off the bus. And we can either deliver it or we can't. So there's no peer-to-peer at all, right? Okay. Fine. So there's nothing else to do here. Let's go back to the UI. So now we're listening, and an incoming message has just been delivered from the UI. The user is found. Send the message directly to the user.
Mm-hmm.
This is where, if we have a peer-to-peer connection, we should send it over that peer-to-peer connection. Because if not, then we send the message over NATS,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Yeah. So we have to do that peer-to-peer check first before we send anything.
We have to, yes, we're going to check.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting to me is, we're checking to see if this said error not exists. Why do I care if error? Because maybe this failed for some other reason. Maybe I don't care that it failed for any other reason. In other words, I don't think this if statement matters. I just want to, the thing is, if that fails, I don't have a log for it, right? So,
If error is not exist, then the user.
because I'm not checking for the error here. In my case, what I need to do is I want to log it, but I don't want to continue. I might as well, if the user's not found and that failed, whatever, let's just log the error, right? But I don't know why I wouldn't want to still try to send it over the NATS at that point. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
So this is just for us to be able to log a problem. We don't have that same issue here, do we? If the user's not found, I would say it's the same.
Same.
Well, let's see. If we don't, we're going to drop it on the floor. If error not exists, then log user not found for logging. That's fine. Oh, then I just return. So I don't like the way I did that. I feel like we should do this. And that bus should be NATS, right? All right. I feel like it's better to do the error check. And then we're sort of out. See what I'm saying? It's just cleaner. So if the user's found, send the message. Just check if we got an error. That way we can log it. And then we don't have a WebSocket connection for this user, so
Yeah.
we're just going to drop it on the floor. And then on the UI side, we do the same thing, right? We try to send it. There's an error, we'll log it. Sending over NATS. I don't know where we're using. Yeah, I can't do that. Whatever, when we find whatever, we find it. Here we're going to have a local P2P send, right?
The then let's say the error is something else. It's not found, but then we still log the next line which says user not found, right? So
True. There's nothing else to do here. True. True.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah.
I
Good
see.
catch. Good catch. Because then we'd see both.
Yeah.
yeah, in
Well,
both
I mean,
scenarios, right?
technically, the user wasn't found, right?
Yeah, that's also.
Yeah, because this wouldn't
I think I want
execute.
both from a lot. I think I want both. I still want to see user not found, so I know it ended,
Okay.
and then I see the error too. I think it's fine. I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were right. If we only wanted one or the other, I think. But I think that's fine. Okay, so here, if we have a peer-to-peer, we should send the message. We haven't figured out how to do that peer-to-peer thing yet, but we do know the following. At least I know this.
It's gonna need the client manager. Yeah.
I need pointer semantics for that too. Okay, I know we need this. We all agree at this point. I need a client manager here. I don't need you. Yeah, I don't need you. And client manager. Okay, we need a client manager. So let's go back through this now. This is why I construct things in main, just to make this easier, right? New business now needs a client manager. Well, guess what? We got a TCP client manager. Boom.
Yeah. Nice.
Bah, done. This is why I try to do everything I can in main and pass it around. We did do the NATS connection, but then we did this stuff in here, which I think was fair.
Yeah.
Because we needed the connection. Okay. So seeing that now, right? Whoa. Why is this C dot?
Yeah.
How did that happen? What did we call this originally? What do I do in the service project for that? I probably use BUS. That doesn't feel right.
I thought you did. I think it might be.
I am sure I use. Oh no, I use
Oh
B.
no, B.
Wow, man, it's been a while since I saw that. And it definitely ain't C. That's for sure. All right, we gotta fix that nightmare. I wonder what we had called it originally. Shoot. Oh, damn, man. I wonder what we called it originally. Let's do this. You're going to be B. And I think we're going to get lucky with C dot everywhere.
If you rename it, also it works.
I know, but that feels slower to me sometimes. Because I could just do this in 2 shots. Okay, except I blew something up here. Well, this is the work that I started doing.
Oh, B dot. Okay. Yeah.
This was the work that I started doing. So let me just do this too here, just for my brain for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the WebSocket, right? That's just for my brain. I'm not saying we're going to keep this, but
Yeah, for the moment.
that's the WebSocket. That's going to be NATS. Going to be our peer-to-peer.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Must have stole it from there. Okay. Now that we have a client manager, B dot shut down. Okay. No, the dial would have already happened, and we would have had a client already. Agreed?
Okay.
The dial would have happened already. We would have had a client. We're going to need an API here at the business level. Hold on. We need some, we might be missing some APIs.
Because that should already be, okay, we have that connection, send it. It shouldn't be dialing.
Yeah, so under storage, we have this idea of a set of users,
Yeah.
their common address, and who they are, which also contains a WebSocket connection,
Okay.
right? We have this idea of a
set of users. And now they're going to need
I'm wondering,
TCP.
if we need this, because we already have the concept of managing users, right?
Yeah.
We already know that they have this is their
A web-
WebSocket connection
Website.
into us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Technically, that's their UI connection,
Yeah.
one could argue, right? But this would be their TCP client connection to the CAP if they've established a peer-to-peer connection. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so if we could pull this off, when you do a dial, if you pull this off. Now here's something interesting, Mohammed. My brain's going. We don't necessarily have to hold the TCP connection. Hear me out. We could establish it, send our message, and drop, just like any HTTP thing.
Okay.
We don't have to hold it, right? We don't have to hold it. So if that was the case, let's just say we were going to do that for a long minute.
Okay.
Okay? We're a long minute here.
But then we need the other CAP IP address somehow.
Yeah. I don't know what the order of things are here. Okay, let's go back. Let's go down this path that I was going down for a minute. Let's just say we go down this path for a minute. Because what's going to happen is the UI is going to double click. That's going to send us a command that says, hey, you need to establish a peer-to-peer connection. And here's the information, right? Because it's going to say what the IP address is and all that.
Yeah.
It's going to need to do that. We have to play that one out first. Let's play that out because I don't know where that is in the code.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what's sort of holding this up, isn't it?
So what we could do, that you receive that a command that says, hey, send a peer-to-peer, establish a peer-to-peer connection. You have no idea which CAP is the owner of that user. You could just send a request via NATS and say, hey, the owner of this user establish a peer-to-peer
Well,
connection.
not
with me.
NATS. Not NATS. This has to come from the UI. So right now, we have this situation here.
So you are connected to your CAP. I am connected to my CAP. You send a command to your CAP that, hey, establish the peer-to-peer connection between your cap and my cap, but your cap has no idea where is my cap.
I know where your cap is because I have it in my config file.
Oh,
The
where
UI
is
will
that?
have it. So I know what we're going to do. The general idea is this.
Okay.
The client has this database here, right? So here's Kevin. Kevin, look up your IP address for a second.
We want to store them here. Okay.
What was that command again?
ifconfig
ifconfig
space, no, do ifconfig space pipe
config pipe
grep and then en0. Oh, no, it doesn't work because it's on a separate line. Look for 192.168. There it is right there.
Yeah.
You're 120. Okay. So right now, Kevin, it's 192.168.1.229 on my system.
Okay, so this is the information of his cap, kind of.
This is the information of, hold on a second. I don't know what I just did here. I wanted to put it here. This is what I know right now about this is his current IP address on my local network. Again, when Tailscale comes, it's going to be another sort of story. Okay. We don't have to put the port number there. We'll establish a common port number.
Okay.
Right? I mean, because you could do, we're going to be listening on 4,000 or something, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, I forgot this step. Yeah, I thought we are blind. We have no idea where is his cap. We just need to broadcast and then.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do any of that crazy stuff, bro. We're going to say, I know where you are. And when we get Tailscale involved, I don't know what that value looks like, but I know where you are.
We'll have it at that point.
Right? And he's going to put, for me, I've config en0. I don't know why there has to be so much stuff. You're going to put 192.168.1.27.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, 1.227.
Yeah.
Right. So he'll have that in here.
Yeah. Okay.
Then remember what also we did here, right? So, shoot, wrong place. Remember what else we did? So if I run the cap here, and I make run UI, oops. What was it again? Make run TUI. Then we added a thing where I can double click and you see establishing peer-to-peer connection with Kevin. See that?
This means getting the IP or IP already happened.
The idea of this was to go tell the cap to establish this connection and tell me if it's there. And then the cap would hold it. So I think what we need to do to make all this work.
Yeah, okay.
We need to do is that has to be done on a regular HTTP thing. It can't be done over the WebSocket. We leave the WebSocket alone. All right. We add another route. We add another route here called P2P, this, and we get the host. We'll just call it host information, right? We make that, you have to pass that. Or we do a post call and we'll pass that in as some JavaScript thingy, majig. So now what we need this. So the UI has to make this call to establish a peer-to-peer connection. We've got to
Yeah.
solve that problem first. We're set up to now do it on the cap at least, because now when the cap starts up, it has a server sort of there. So
Okay.
this is what we got to do first. Until we do this, we don't know sort of enough. Now that means that this app layer
Mm-hmm.
needs the client needs a client manager. Okay, so why I keep pausing is I'm trying to figure out where we're going to manage this set of peer-to-peer connections. We might need to add some more support to the TCP client manager. I don't know enough yet.
Okay.
I do know that maybe we didn't need the client manager here just yet. Maybe we need something bigger. I don't know, because it has to be a lookup at some point. So let's do the following, because at a bare minimum, maybe this needs to be in chat business though, right? So look, chat business already has a client manager, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But given what? Some model that, or maybe nothing more than just host information. I don't know yet. Right? I don't know yet. But I do know this. Given this function, b dot client manager dot dial, I need a context.
Okay.
The network, we know it's going to be TCP4, at least for now.
Yeah.
And the address
is what you need.
we
Yeah.
do that, right? And what we can do, see if this works, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get a client and an error. If error not equals nil, fine.
Sure, that will work.
I don't know why you're doing that, but we do that. The thing is, what do we do with this client connection?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, we need access to it here in the chat bus. We need to associate it with this sort of user. Now, we do have a common address when the... How does that work? Let's go back and look at again real quick. Let me just do this for a second, just to get rid of the red lines. When we establish a socket connection here, we did the UI handshake.
Mm-hmm.
We go into a listen, right? The UI handshake, when it's all done, added this user to this store. When it added the user to the store, that user had an ID, which was its common address. Let's go back here for a second. UI handshake. Oh, but that's down in UI there. Okay. We don't establish its ID here. That's weird. At this point, it doesn't have an ID. It has a connection, ping time, has no name, it has no ID. Yeah, whatever. Whoa. How does that work? I'm missing something. Oh. Man, I am confused. We're constructing a user.
Yeah.
Oh, unmarshalling here. Okay. The ID comes from reading of this message. We must do it as part of the handshake, which is really scary and fragile. We must do it as part of the handshake. So we must do it as part of this handshake. We send your account ID as part of the handshake. It's a little fragile because what we should be doing here check that we user ID and name, which we never did, right? I mean, if yeah, do we have a connection? Yeah, we close it.
And we're not doing that check further.
No, we're not.
Further.
It's interesting code it just gave me. Defer the close, right? Oh, because it stole it from below. Now this here. Okay, so look, we didn't do this, right? If that part of the handshake sort of fails, then we were bumming out. But this read message, yeah, it's one message we're expecting back, but we didn't sort of validate. You know what I'm saying? Like the handshake says, dial, read. You should get a hello. You send this back, right?
Okay. But we're not doing
But
check.
I would say that I don't know why I can't find it over and over again. UI handshake, right? We send hello. We wait. We're expecting this information. We weren't checking that we got it. So that solves that problem, all right? Yeah. And the confusion on an ID. So we now have an ID.
Yeah.
That was your decentralized ID based on your key, which is right here.
Yeah.
So we get that and we get your name. We validated that now, which is good. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So we have that information now. And let me go back to where we were here for a second. So what other information do we need that I can get? I can get his ID, which would allow me to get his user. But what I need also is the ID of the person he's trying to connect to. That's really what I need.
Yeah. Where the
What I really need is the ID and address of the person you're trying to connect to. So when you make this call, I'm sending this information and this information. I send both.
when the person trying to connect makes the call, you're saying.
Yeah, when I
That's what
double click and I say establish a socket connection with Kevin,
Yeah.
I'm sending this
You're sending that. Okay.
and
You're
I'm sending this.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sending this at this app layer route. We'll have a model for this.
Gotcha.
Now, at that point, somebody's making this call. Okay. But I've got this and I've got this. Now, at that point, I can look up your user. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have your common address.
Yeah.
I can look up your user, which then tells me that I could put a TCP client, star TCP client in here. I technically could do that.
Because you have what you need to.
Because I'll have it.
Yeah.
However, we need an update function that allows us to update that, just like we did with update ping. Update TCP client. Right?
Yeah.
Point of semantics. So boom, 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 boom. User dot TCP client equals client. Put it back in. And then I don't know why we did that at a debug level. We really didn't want to see it. That's a weird message here.
Update
Chat.
ping. Chat. Update.
Oh, update ping.
Yeah. Update client.
But I don't have a name. Oh, I have a username. All right, got a user ID. What else do I have though? I have a client dot, nothing else really. I never remember if we should be using local address or. All right, let's just do this. Okay, so look.
Yep.
We now need to add this to the interface though. And now, with that support, if we did that right, I have a client.
You do have a client?
What did we call our thing though?
Dial P2. No, you already have that.
Oh, I need to access the interface for this. Oh, store. Yeah. Store dot update TCP client context user ID
And
client.
client that we got from there.
And that could fail. I don't need to log anything here. Okay. So that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
We could even try to at least test that today. Okay. Now, we have that. We already have user established because you have socket connection. So now we're managing the TCP connection. We're going to get all that for free. We're going to have to worry about our handlers for when the connection drops. We haven't done that yet, right? We had put the handler, where did we put the handler code? Oh, here.
TCP app. Yeah.
But now I don't think this belongs here. It's going to have to belong
Business.
this right here is going to have to belong, yeah, sort of in here.
Why?
Because we need access to the business stuff.
Okay.
So for lack of a better place to put it right now, if I did this, again, for lack of a better place, well, we know this, right?
Context.
Just to have something here right now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You see, we need this here because we've got to manage this here. It has to be managed here. You know what we don't get from our TCP package? I don't get an event if the connection drops. I won't know to reset the thing back to nil. This is what I was looking for.
Oh.
So what's now interesting here, I got chicken and the egg problems again. So let's do it this way instead. I don't know where to put this just yet. So, okay, I have a chicken and the egg problem. I need the client manager, but this is going to need to be able to access business. Here's my problem. We can do this, and we're going to do this. That's fine.
Okay.
The problem is that if this thing drops, One, I don't know about it. We got to go back into the TCP package and add support for knowing if this client connection drops,
Okay.
because I have to update the TCP client again to nil. Then at some point, data is going to be sent across, right? This is the dial side. Data is going to be sent across. We've got to be able to receive it and process that data. So, and that's on the client side here, right? Though on this side, we just care about sending it. I don't really care about receiving anything back. We're lucky in that everything is sort of one way. You receive on the server side, but you send on the client side, right? So just to keep everything green for a second. This is all fine and dandy now, which would then allow me to write the following code. Oh, no. Here, right? We have race condition. I have to do a lookup, but let's go back. We already did it here, didn't we? 2. So if 2 dot tc doesn't equal nil, right? I don't know what to do here just yet, okay? But just assume this for a second. That's wrong. If we have a client connection, right? Oh, but we would have only, we would have only found it if, God, my brain hurts. This isn't right either. This isn't right either. I don't have you in my little storage system. That's wrong. That's not going to work. Because I have my socket connection, not yours. So this change here was wrong. This isn't going to help me. I've been trying to avoid managing these clients.
Okay.
So we can look them up and know which one to use. And I've been unsuccessful in doing that.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work.
So is that idea crazy that we send it to NATS?
Yeah, because that defeats the whole purpose. I don't want to touch NATS. The whole point is to walk away from NATS, to just do a peer-to-peer. But that's not my problem. My problem now is I say connect. We establish a connection. I have an ID. I have a peer-to-peer. That's all good, right? Now when I'm in here, what I need is, this is the problem. Check if we have a peer-to-peer connection for the user. How do we do that? How do we do that, right? A part of me has been trying to leverage,
The storage kind of.
part of me has been trying to leverage this, and we have to be able to leverage this. But the funny thing here is that we might need a second one of these. You see, I have a store for the WebSocket side. It's essentially what we have, right? We have a store for the WebSocket side. I now need a store for the TCP client side. I keep trying to avoid this,
Okay.
and
But, yeah.
right, and all that has to go away. Like none of this was the right thing to do because
So we prefer to have a separate store for it. Don't use one store
do.
for both.
We do. But I don't need an interface for that. The point of this interface was because we were writing, or ideally, there was information like maybe this we wanted to persist, right?
Mhm.
And I think we were somewhat overkill on the implementation of a store there. Because really, what we're trying to do is manage, what this was trying to do is manage socket connections, right? More than anything else. That's what this implementation was. It was an in memory of this user, where a user has. Now, my thing is we could reuse the user, add the TCP connection to it, even though we're not doing pings and pongs and all that. So I think this is where we're at. Why are you red? I want you to be unread. All right. I think this is where we're at. And this is going to have to now wait, unfortunately. Okay. Okay. This sucks, man. When you do this, you have to hit escape first now to do this. Okay. First thing I want to do, I want to remove the store interface from chat bus. I want to call store now a sort of like a con manager or something. Right.
Okay.
Right. It's really just to be clear, WebSocket connection manager. Even though we're going to rename it.
Yeah.
Then what I want to do is create a new TCP sort of client manager, so we can manage that side of it. And we'll use the same ID and everything that's there. See, then we can finish the dial API, saving the right client to the new manager. Now I've got it. And then we can go into line 146 of UI, right? And look up the user in the new manager, right? Because what's going to happen now in here is I know who you are. I've got your information. Do we have a peer-to-peer connection? Now I can check.
Got it.
But that's the problem. The problem is that the store interface was too early. I don't need it. You can think about that later. This was already telling me that it was sort of silly at that point. We're really using it to maintain a WebSocket connection. So we're going to remove the store interface. We're going to take the concrete implementation. Maybe not. Maybe we don't, because we're going to have a problem with, then I have to put the code to, okay, no, we're going to leave it like this. We're going to do this, okay? We're going to change store to be a WebSocket connection manager, okay? And then we're going to add a new TCP client connection manager. We'll have to add another interface for that too. The reason is that this package needs to use the data types from business, and that means I got to stick it in there, and I can't have the package isolation sort of that I really want here.
Okay. Okay.
I just can't have it. It'll have to be all under the same namespace, and I don't want that. So the idea for me is store turns into a web sort of socket manager. And I don't know what we've been, well, maybe it's more of a UI manager, right? Because what we've been doing is using UI as the name for those WebSockets, right? So this is like the UI, a UI client manager, okay?
Yeah.
Where this is a UI user at the end of the day, okay? It represents a UI user. And we come back here. This is the UI. Just keep it small for a large minute here. That's the UI client manager, right? And this could be the UI client manager for now. And that should be using pointers. Oh, no, it's an interface. Okay. So that's the UI client manager, right? Oh, and it's not used here. It's used there. Okay. Then the idea is we need another one of these for a TCP client manager. Where we're going to have a TCP user, right?
Mhm.
I'll just do subwalk there and
Then
all of it sort of changes to this, right? We could just say client now. See what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
And then when we come back here, we've got to be able to add. I don't need that. Got to be able to remove, and I don't have an event for that, so hold on. And even there, we need a add new client drop function to TCP interface. I need to have this. I got to be told if this connection drops early, because if not, we're not going to be able to clean up. And so I don't know if I need connections. I know I'm going to need to retrieve. And it can be the same sort of thing, right? And then we'll have a TCP client manager that's managing sort of this, which would potentially also mean that this client manager could be part of this. I don't know enough yet. I do know we need this, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, what's going to have to happen, we just play this out a little bit, okay? Even though I haven't asked for it yet. What's going to have to happen is, where's the code that we were here, right? If b dot TCP manager dot retrieve context, it's the same call, right? And that should return, it's the same sort of call, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do in here, but assuming that that was right. Okay. Okay, now like perform the P2P send here, right? Now, let's go back and look at the interface for one last second here.
The user is different.
So I can do with that. Okay, thank you. So this will have to be a, what did we call that? A UI?
UI user.
Like UI2, right? And then this will have to be a client 2, or what do you call it? TCP.
TCP.
Yeah.
Is that what we called it? UI, TCP. Maybe this should be more client is. Let's just keep it TCP until we learn more, right?
Yeah.
Also, should we rename the connection in the model's previous
I don't know where
UI
it's
connection?
used.
Or
I don't know where connections being used. Let's go back. Oh, that returns connections there, right? So yeah, so this should be called a UI connection, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So my point is this, right? I need a manager that can add, remove, retrieve. This is getting long enough here where we need a config type for sort of all these things here.
Yeah.
I'd keep the logger where it is, but have like a now if it could help me with this, that would have been brilliant.
Yeah, that would have been
Right.
great.
What was the subject again? I don't remember. I'll just put this in here too. So now I can do this, and I can do sort of that, right? But all this will have to be capital. I mean, we're out of time already, but at least get the project.
Yeah. Ready for the next.
So CFG dot subject. Oh, the subject for the NATS. See, now that name feels bad, right?
NATS.
Not subject. Not subject. CFG dot cap ID, right?
Yep.
And then all this CFG dot log. I don't know if the client manager belongs here just yet. And then we're going to add the TCP CFG dot TCP, right? So now, like we have to pass that in. That's fine, right? Fix this now because all this turns into a I don't know what you're doing, bro. Stop. All right, we need a log. We need a client manager, which I guess is this. Then we need a con, which is, oh, but that's a a NATS connection, isn't it? NATS connection, which we must use here. Okay, that's better. NATS connection is here in C. Then you have your UI CM, which was this. No,
No, it's T.
that was not that. That was the client manager. I don't have this just yet. Let me just, well, we do have it. That was this, which we're going to have to rename.
Okay.
And then you have this other one, which we don't have yet. So we'll do that. See, okay.
Okay.
All right. So
Yeah, the client manager and TCP/CM, it's a bit,
yeah, I don't like the name either, dude.
yeah.
I tried though. Maybe it's client MGR. Now the problem is again, I don't think this belongs here. I think this is, I think the TCP client manager should be handling that,
Yeah.
right? Like this feels wrong to me since we need a TCP client manager. But at the same time, we've got to be able to dial then, right? And so what might happen here is what this turns into more is a dial call than anything else. Where was dial? Here, right? I just look at this for a second. Where dial can do the add, in other words. So the idea would be dial, but I would need, in order to do this dial, I would need sort of this. See, if we had this API, then this would return a TCP user, right? And then you have the, say, drop. Let's just say like this was the API because I don't know enough yet.
Yeah.
See, then I don't need the other client manager. That could all be like that. Now you're going to complain that I have a variable I'm not using somewhere. But now what happens is we come back here. This is now using the TCP client manager.
Yeah, we have it already.
Oh yeah, we have it already. Thank you. We should have renamed these two, right? Okay. Now here, we're going to use the TCP client manager dial, right? Which would then also potentially in turn just do the add into the client manager, right? Instead of doing it as, now we could do, again, we could build this API out where you have dial and add, but dial drop would be enough to sort of do that, right?
Yeah.
There may be more that we have to put here. So we haven't built this thing yet, right? I'm going to rename this user thing to the next time. But I mean, we can't run this thing anymore because, well, that's just the dial. Did we break anything in here? Right, I'm just going to do this. But you can see where that would sort of come into play there,
Yeah.
right? All right. So I need a new drop function, the TCP package, right? I need that, and I need to extend it and extend it out. Then we need to sort of finish the work on the TCP client manager. Which would essentially be these sorts of things here that I can think about right now. Right?
Yeah.
And then we also had the add new route, which we really didn't do it for establishing the app layer. So that was the work we sort of did here,
Yeah.
right? That needs to get done. Which is all part of the same thing. I'll just leave that. But we have all this work to do now. So I don't even know where these handlers belong either yet. I do know that I think they're going to need to belong here. So this use mem storage now doesn't make sense. We're going to have to fix that, right? That's really part of the UI client manager. That's a UI client manager implementation. We need a TCP client manager implementation now. There's more work to do. Bro.
Yeah.
We ain't getting this thing done anytime. That sucks. All this to add some, everything else I felt like went really fast.
Yeah.
And this peer-to-peer stuff has been really like even, and with the fact that I started with a bunch of code, right?
Yeah. But it involves refactoring a lot of that code and then kind of going through it and
Yeah, I know.
Changing
It
it
really
up.
wasn't ready for prime time at any level. And we keep finding these little things. And as we add more, this always happens. When you add more, you had to go back and refactor other things because the names of things no longer make sense. Or we know more now.
Yeah,
and we know
exactly.
better. So I feel like we've got at least another 2 shows to get the package, to get this stuff in a place where we can actually double click, get established connection, see a message go through.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're way past time. So, Mohammed, thanks for hanging out with us this week, man. It's always a pleasure, and you always find stuff that I don't see. So it's awesome.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me. Sorry, today I'm a bit tired. I had 4 hours back-to-back meetings before this show, so it's like 6 hours, almost 6.5, that I'm just seated on this
Yeah,
Sure.
wow.
God, you man. Well, go take some time there for sure, but we appreciate it. All right.
Yeah, but yeah, super happy to be here. I appreciate it.
All right. Let's go.
Thank you, Bob.